Do you think though Bitcoin can go to zero?
I think eventually it will be at zero, that it can't go and make a new high above 26,000.
You predicted the 2008 crisis perfectly. You are mentioning there is an even bigger crashes coming. Biggest in the history.
That crisis was going to be a dollar crisis and a sovereign debt crisis. I think that gold moving up the way it has is an indicator that the crisis is closer now.
Many people are talking about the strategy by Michael Saylor. Their stock is down by 50 to 70% in just few months. Do you think it can badly impact the overall industry?
End for MicroStrategy is bankruptcy.
When you first heard about Bitcoin in 2010, it was around $1. Now you look back when Bitcoin has reached to $100,000. Don't you have a little bit of regret?
If I could go back in time and buy Bitcoin when I'd have put everything into it.
You think that you should have bought Bitcoin?
If I wanted to buy Bitcoin, I would wait for strategy to have to sell before I bought it, because I know that when he gets out, the price is going to be very low.
Bitcoin is virtual.
It's just a meme coin.
So finally, a price predictions, especially for 2026.
And gold, I think gold will hit. I think the real key is going to be around that. If it can hold above that, then maybe it'll have another run. But if it can't, Bitcoin could collapse.
Peter Schiff, one of the most influential economists and CEO of an $830 million fund.
Euro Asset. Host of the Peter Schiff Show podcast, he is known for his anti-Bitcoin stance and is one of the biggest advocates of gold.
Also famous as Dr. Doom for his accurate predictions like the 2008 crisis.
His theory on bad paper money and a broken financial system is changing how people think about money.
Kind of man you might love or hate, but can't ignore.
Hey, I wanted to give you a warning. This podcast might trigger you if you are a true Bitcoin or a crypto believer like me. But if you are a true Bitcoin believer, you will never run away from a good anti-Bitcoin discussion. So here is the challenge for you and me. If you are a true knowledge seeker and a learner, watch this podcast till the end. Comment down your logical thoughts on the Peter arguments. So welcome to the Sujal show. Hello Peter, I am in crypto for last 5 years and I'm strong believer in Bitcoin and crypto.
Well, why'd you wait so long to buy it? Although I guess you're young, but it's been around. By the time you bought it, it was had already made a pretty big move.
Yeah. So I just love this space. Okay, and I, as a child, I just want to learn more. I want to see the other side of the story, and I think you are the best person to give me that perspective, from the Bitcoin and gold perspective, right? So who is Peter right now? If you want to describe it to your 20-year self, what make Peter Peter?
I don't know that I've changed all that much since I was 20. Things hurt a little bit more. When I move around, I don't have as much hair. At least on my head, I have more hair other places. But but other than that, I'm 62 now, but I think inside I don't feel that I'm much different. I guess I've learned quite a bit over the years, and I don't know if my 20-year-old self would have bought Bitcoin or not. It's hard to say. But when I learned about Bitcoin initially, I was at 62. I was probably in my late 40s when I first heard about it. It was early on. About I think 2010 is when I was introduced to it, and people tried to persuade me to buy it. I should have listened to them.
You think that you should have bought Bitcoin?
Well, it was it was $1. It may have been below $1. I can't recall exactly, but I think it was still below $1, because I think I remember when it got to $1, thinking, oh, it's $1 now. So But the irony of it is, had I bought it, I may have had it on Mt. Gox, because I remember I was watching Mt. Gox around that time, and that's where I think I was going to get the price, or somebody showed it to me. So, but actually, that may have been a blessing if I'd have got it back, because I think people had their Bitcoin at Mt. Gox, couldn't sell it, and so by the time they got it, I think they got some of it back. I'm not exactly sure what happened at the end of the day, but. Yeah, I might have bought it back then, and I might have lost it. But who knows? But yeah, I mean, it was very inexpensive. The only other time, and I thought about buying it, just for the hell of it. And I don't know how much I would have bought. Maybe I would have put $5,000 in, 10 grand. I don't know. I mean, it's possible I could have done 50 or 100. I don't remember. I mean, obviously, if I'd have put 100 grand in back then, assuming I kept it, right? There's a lot of things that you have to assume. But I do know that I tend to be a bit of a pack rat. I mean, I have a lot of investments that I've held for 20 years, so it's possible I could have held that, Bitcoin. Certainly some of it. I mean, I might have sold some of it. But I moved to Puerto Rico in 2017, so any gains I had after that would have been tax-free. So that would have been good. But the only other time I thought about buying it was years later when it was 300-400 a Bitcoin, because some other people I knew were buying it, and a hedge fund guy I knew who was a smart guy was buying it, and I was like, well, why are they buying this crap? These guys are buying Bitcoin, and I thought, well, if these smart people are buying it, some other people could buy it. Maybe I should buy it because it obviously can go up if this kind of money is coming into it, and I just couldn't get over the idea that I didn't buy it at $1, and so now I'm going to buy it at $300 or $400. I was like, well, should and so mentally I didn't want to buy it after not buying it. I'm like, even though, because I still didn't believe in it, and I still don't. I haven't changed my view on it as to why I didn't like it. And in fact, one of the problems I had with it, apart from its lack of real intrinsic value, was the fact that other cryptos could be created. And at the time I knew about Bitcoin, I mean that's about all there was, right? And I remember asking, I said, well, can anybody else make one of these? And the fact that it was open sourced and that anybody could copy it, that is really what kind of probably tipped it for me not like, what's the point, right? They could just make as many of these as possible so more people can start launching them. What's so special about this one? And as it turns out, I was right? Now there's all these cryptos, but it didn't matter. The price of Bitcoin went up anyway. So I guess I didn't foresee all that back then,
So you heard about Bitcoin in 2010, right?
Yeah.
It was around $1. Okay, so when did you bought your first Bitcoin?
I've never bought a Bitcoin.
You have never bought
No,
a Bitcoin?
I've had possession of some Bitcoin. I mean, never a full Bitcoin. I've had possession of some Satoshis, but they were all gifted to me by somebody, like transferred to show me how it worked, right? I never actually, spent my own money to buy any of it.
Okay, so
and I don't anticipate ever doing that.
You never think of buying Bitcoin now?
No,
Never.
No, it never really occurs to me. I don't really have an interest in speculating on it. I mean, I suppose if I was really wanting to trade, there's a lot of volatility in Bitcoin, and so there are people who just trade it because of the action, and they're good at it. They can time it, and they trade it. But I really don't have any interest in trying to trade Bitcoin. I don't want to spend the time. And I certainly don't think it's a viable long-term investment. And that I do look for places to invest my money, but I wouldn't consider Bitcoin to be an investment. So it's not even one of the things that I would consider owning.
Bitcoin is not even in your options list.
No. There's nothing appealing about it. It doesn't pay a dividend. It's not a company. It doesn't have earnings. It doesn't have any real growth potential. I'm just speculating on whether or not I think the price is going to go up. And that's just a function of whether or not more people are going to want to buy Bitcoin in the future. And are the people who own it now not going to want to sell theirs? Or will there be enough new buying to enable the existing holders to sell? And I don't think there will be. I mean, I think maybe we've already reached peak Bitcoin. There's so much excitement about it now. There's so much hype. It's hard to imagine it getting any bigger, given how much it's captured the attention of the media, of politicians. You know, so I mean, it was a very successful marketing campaign. I mean, I think the big money that got in around, you know, the time that I saw these hedge funds buying it when it was 300, 400, 500, you know, who put serious money into it at that time. They did a fantastic job of hyping it up and promoting it. And they've been able to exit. I think a lot of the early, you know, buyers of Bitcoin, OGs, the whales, whatever you call these guys, I think they've been using a lot of the hype and the buying that has resulted to cash out. And I think you know that's probably one of the main reasons that the price of Bitcoin has not gone up this year, has gone down, because as many new buyers that have come in, you've had a large number of sellers who have taken advantage of that to get out. So that, you know, there's a good chance that, you know, this is kind of the distribution of the Bitcoin from the strong hands who held it and pumped it up to the bag holders, right, who are now buying it and, you know, are going to lose a lot of money. Right? The money that the early buyers made is going to equal the money that the later buyers lose. And unfortunately, you're probably in the later camp because you just started buying 5 years ago. I assume, when was the last time you bought?
I bought it on $90,000 just 1 month ago, something like that.
Yeah, so you're paying $90,000 for something that was $1, right? You know, and so yeah, you're paying a high price for it, and a lot of people who are, you know, buying Bitcoin at $90,000 think they're still early in this thing. I mean, they think it's going to millions, and that's just so fantastical. This just, you know, it seems like it's so unlikely to happen given the market cap that would imply, you know, to get it to that level. But you know, that's why people are buying it, because they believe that's where it's going. And that's a function of all the marketing and all of the hype. But I mean, I would say, you know, Bitcoin is now, I mean, I looked at it before we came in, it was like 92,000. So you can make a little profit if you sell that Bitcoin that you bought at 90,000, which I think would be a good move for you. Don't hodl it. You know, don't. That's, you know, this idea that you never sell your Bitcoin was started by people who want to sell their Bitcoin but don't want others to sell theirs because they need to keep the market up.
Do you think like Bitcoin has already peaked?
Well, you know, I made the mistake of thinking it peaked in 2021 when it fell off from 69,000, right? And you know, prior to that, I never really called the top in it. I was just saying, look, I don't know how high this thing is going to go, right? Because it had momentum, and I was like, you know, what the hell? I mean, when it was at 10,000, I said, you know, well, if it can go to 10,000 and go to 50,000, what's the difference, right? So I was saying this in interviews, you know, and, you know, it got to 50,000. It almost hit 100,000, you know, and everybody had the laser beams on their eyes and stuff like that. But then it had that big decline. And at the time, I was thinking, okay, that's probably the top. And I was saying, look, it's not going to 100,000. You guys are dreaming. And, you know, now I have to, you know, swallow those words because it got to 100,000 after I said it wasn't going to go there. Now, I think that the only reason it got to 100,000 was because of Trump. I think that had Kamala Harris won, and I supported Trump, and I'm not, you know, and I've been very critical of a lot of the stuff that he's been doing. Not all of some of the stuff I support, but there's a lot of stuff I've been critical of, including all the Bitcoin promotion. But when Trump won and, you know, really sought to not just legitimize a lot of crypto and Bitcoin, but started pumping it himself, talking about Bitcoin. We're going to be the Bitcoin capital of the world, right? We're going to be the leader in crypto, and I have a crypto czar in the White House, and, you know, putting people in his cabinet that are all own Bitcoin, right? And really, you know, legitimizing it in the eyes of investors, encouraging Wall Street by saying we're going to support it. We're going to have policies and that are promoting Bitcoin, not just hands off, right? Like but we're going to actually try to steer capital into this industry, and then of course the Trump family gets involved. I mean, not just Trump's meme coins, but Liberty Financial and what they're doing in crypto, and in fact, his company DJT, Donald Trump Media, pivoted to become a Bitcoin treasury company. So I think all of this helped fuel the speculation that, if the U.S. government is in on it, I need to get in on it. And they were saying, look, when the U.S. is doing it, the rest of the world's going to have to follow. And then they talked about we're going to have a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and they keep introducing legislation to require the U.S. government to buy Bitcoin. And now you have even the state of Texas bought Bitcoin, right? So I think that's what drove it above 100,000, right? Now, it got up to 126,000. And then it fell back down to 80,000. Now it's back in the low 90s. Now, I'm not going to say for certain that it can't go and make a new high above 26,000. It could do it. I feel a lot more confident in saying that it may never make a new high in gold, right? The peak for the price of Bitcoin in gold was in 2021 when it was at 69,000. So now, I take that back. In its run earlier this year, it took out that high by 1% or 2%. And I'm talking about in 2021, when Bitcoin hit 69,000, you could have bought, I think, 37.2 ounces of gold with one Bitcoin. Today, you can only buy about 22 ounces. So it's about a 40% decline from where it was. And that's a function of Bitcoin. Actually, it's a function of gold going up, not Bitcoin going down, because Bitcoin is higher than 69,000. But gold has gone up so much more than Bitcoin since then. Gold has basically doubled. That it's more than doubled. And so Bitcoin has lost purchasing power in terms of how much gold you can buy. So I think that it's more likely that if Bitcoin gets to 130,000 or 140,000, that it'll be below where it was in 2021 in terms of gold. Because I expect gold to keep rising too. So it's going to be a moving target. But it's also possible that 126,000 was the nominal high for Bitcoin. I mean, you always have to think about that's the possibility. But I feel more confident about that if Bitcoin broke more significantly. Let's say it was below 50,000. I would, at that point, I would have a much higher degree of confidence that 126,000 was the high. But as of now, it really hasn't broken any kind of significant trend. But I think it is looking very toppy. And there was so much hype over the last 4 years, not just Trump winning, but all the Bitcoin ETFs that were created, and you had other demand for crypto, with, the NFTs and El Salvador, and then more recently, all of these crypto treasury companies that were formed for the specific purpose of buying Bitcoin. I mean, what a ridiculous concept, pioneered by Michael Saylor, that, we're just going to buy Bitcoin. And Saylor just, constantly sells stock, issues preferred stock, coupons, and just uses the money to buy Bitcoin, which, is kind of ridiculous because anybody who wants Bitcoin can buy it. I mean, the whole selling point of Bitcoin was that it's easy to buy and self-custody, and you don't need a third party. You don't need, a a custodian or Wall Street. And, that seems to be forgotten now because almost all the Bitcoin is either ETFs or inside corporate treasuries. And so it kind of defeats the whole, purpose, use case, supposedly, of what Bitcoin was trying to be. But with all of that buying that has already happened, and the price hasn't been able to get through the highs, you'd have to think that that's it. Like, where's the next big round of buying going to come from? That's going to, allow the people who just bought to sell. I think there's a lot of room for people to be disappointed now. I think a lot of people who are in Bitcoin, like yourself, came in over the last few years. And they were attracted to it by the huge gains that people who got in early had already enjoyed. And they were hoping that, lightning would strike again and that, there was still room for them to make the big money. And it hasn't really panned out. I mean, yes, we got above 100,000 and everybody was having parties. But, if you bought it at 70,000, 80,000, you're not making that much money at 90,000. You could have made more money if you bought a lot of other things, including gold, including silver. There's a lot of stocks that have done very well, a lot of tech stocks. So Bitcoin has not been a particularly good investment. It hasn't been a disaster. Right? It hasn't crashed, but it hasn't really done much for people. And I think a lot of the people who got into the ETFs in particular are going to lose interest in Bitcoin. They are going to look to some other investment because they're not real hardcore Bitcoin people. They don't have any real philosophical, alignment with, people who might have bought it, years and years ago. They were libertarians, free market guys, distrusted government, didn't like fiat currency or the Fed. A lot of the people who bought the ETFs, they don't even have an opinion on those things. They just want to make more fiat currency. They bought Bitcoin to make more dollars, right? That was the whole goal, right? That's why they bought an ETF. That's why they don't have their own wallet, right? And so I think that as they're not going to get the big gain that they were hoping for or they were promised, they will just, cash out. And the problem is, I don't think they can. I just think there's so much money now over the last couple of years that has gone into these ETFs. I don't see how it can come out because I don't see the volume at these prices to take the other side of that trade, especially if the selling is concentrated in a short period of time, right? Because the buyers came in over years. But let's say Bitcoin starts to break down and it does get below 50,000. And now people bought it at 70,000, 80,000. And that's it, I'm out. I mean, I'm cutting my losses. I'm not riding this down to 10,000, right? I'm getting out, right? Well, the minute they try to get out, it'll be 10,000, maybe lower, because there's not enough there. And then the other thing that is really problematic, other than all the speculative people who have Bitcoin in ETFs, a lot of people who did get in earlier, who didn't want to sell, right? Because they were, expecting $1 million, and they didn't want to sell their Bitcoin because they didn't want to miss out on those gains, right? And there's a lot of FOMO in Bitcoin where people don't want to sell, right? And so a lot of companies were created to enable people to have their cake and eat it too, where they can, get some of the benefits of the value of their Bitcoin without having to sell it and give up all that upside. And they did that with leverage. And so a lot of people have put their Bitcoin up as collateral and borrowed against it. And they've spent that money. And They haven't paid any taxes because they haven't sold anything, right? But if Bitcoin were to drop below 50,000, again, I think that most of the collateralized Bitcoin would be liquidated. And now, who's going to buy that? That's also part of the collapse that I see coming in the market. And there's a lot of downside in Bitcoin. I mean, $10,000 to me still seems like a high price for Bitcoin.
Really?
But it's, if people bought it at 100,000, they've lost 90% of their money at 10,000, right? Even though the people who bought it at 100, are made a fortune at 10,000, right? They're even, but people that bought it like you, now, if Bitcoin goes to $10,000, you'll be down to quite a bit. I mean, I don't know how much money, but percentage-wise, you're at the average price of your Bitcoin if you started buying it 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe you got some at 10, 15, 20,000, but you've probably averaged yourself up now. Your average price is probably north of 50,000. What you paid for your Bitcoin.
Do you think so? For example, like you spoke about the treasury companies who are buying Bitcoin, and right now there is many people are talking about the strategy by Michael Saylor. Their stock is down by 50 to 70% in just few months. Do you think it can badly impact the overall industry?
Yeah, well, I've said for some time now that I think the only end for MicroStrategy is a bankruptcy.
Really?
Well, because I don't think they have the ability to repay their debt because the company loses money, right? There is a software business buried deep beneath all that Bitcoin somewhere, but their operating costs exceed whatever they earn on their software business. And I can't imagine they even pay much attention to that business anymore. They should probably just spit it off. I don't know, But so they borrowed a lot of money earlier, and a lot of these notes are going to come due in a couple of years.
Okay.
And the initial idea was that they're going to convert them to stock. Well, they're not. I mean, all of these conversion prices are way above the current share price, let alone the future share price, which is probably going to be even lower. So, I don't know how Saylor is going to raise the billions of dollars that he needs other than selling Bitcoin. But when Strategy has to sell Bitcoin, what's the price going to be? Because Strategy has been one of the main buyers. They've bought 40 billion worth of Bitcoin. And not only did their buying drive up Bitcoin, but people knew they were going to buy. And so they wanted to front run it, right? Because you have this huge buyer that's going to buy, right? So that makes it easier for other people to buy because they feel there's support. I think MicroStrategy is already finished buying Bitcoin because the way they were able to buy Bitcoin was their stock traded at a big premium to their NAV for Bitcoin. So let's say that they had, the value of the stock was 50% higher than the value of the Bitcoin, right? So they could sell stock at $1.50 and then go buy Bitcoin so that the Bitcoin per share would go up because the stock they sold was more expensive than the Bitcoin they were buying. And so this is what generated this, Bitcoin yield, right? But now that the premium is gone, and I believe it's going to start trading at a significant discount to Bitcoin because people are going to start to worry about its financial position. But when it's either trading flat or at a discount, Strategy can no longer create a positive Bitcoin yield. And I don't think he's going to, be able to attract capital. And so what will the purpose of strategy be? It won't have a business anymore. It's not a Bitcoin treasury, or they're creating this digital credit, which is all a bunch of BS. I mean, yes, he was able to borrow money. He wasn't creating credit. He was going into debt. And there was some demand for his preferreds because of the high yield. And people were attracted to it for the high yield. But he has no ability to pay it, and he's probably going to just stop paying it because he's not even required to pay it. He doesn't have to declare the dividends. And of course, once he stops paying the dividends, nobody's going to want to buy any more preferred. So right now, the last thing that he did was he sold about $1.5 billion worth of stock to have dollars, to have cash. He didn't buy Bitcoin. He bought treasuries. And he needed that to have some kind of cushion to be able to keep paying the interest. But the irony of it is he's borrowing money to pay back what he already owes. That's a Ponzi. And he's got the money in treasuries that earns 4%, but he's paying 8 and 10% for the money that he borrowed. So I think the whole thing is already broken. And strategy is going to go down. And they're not going to buy any more Bitcoin. And eventually they're going to sell Bitcoin. And so this is a big albatross, I think, around the neck of Bitcoin, to the extent that if I wanted to buy Bitcoin, right, I would wait for strategy to have to sell before I bought it, because I know that when he gets out, the price is going to be very low. He's not going to get out at a good price. And it's going to be the creditors that are going to force the sale of his Bitcoin. But, I think it's going to trade at a significant discount to Bitcoin, just like the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust did. Before it became an open-ended ETF, it went from a big premium to a big discount. And that was one of the factors that drove Bitcoin down, because they were no longer buyers. They had been doing the same thing that strategy was doing. They were selling shares at a premium and then buying Bitcoin. Strategy basically copied the business model of the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust before they became open-ended. But the other thing too is, once strategy is trading for a significant discount to its Bitcoin, there is a lot of pressure on strategy to sell Bitcoin, because they can now buy back their stock. And they can create a Bitcoin yield that way by selling stock and buying it. By selling Bitcoin and buying back their stock, they can increase their Bitcoin per share. But of course, the price of Bitcoin will be going down because of all the selling, which is what he doesn't want to do. But meanwhile, he's also encouraged everybody else to go into debt to buy Bitcoin. Mortgage your house, bet the farm, borrow against your business, sell your organs, buy Bitcoin.
Okay.
So
like on a human side, let's go back to your 40s when you first heard about Bitcoin in 2010. It was around $1. Now you look back when Bitcoin has reached to $100,000. Don't you have a little bit of regret, like you could have?
Well, of course. Look, I'm not an idiot. Look, I was just talking last night at a party I was at with a couple of guys who live in my neighborhood, right? Young guys, I mean, not I guess they're in their 30s now, but they have hundreds of millions, maybe billions. I don't know exactly how much. But, they have all this money from crypto because they bought, Ether at $2. They bought a bunch of Ether. I forget what their cost was for Bitcoin. But I know they have hundreds of millions of dollars in these tokens, maybe billions. And yeah, I mean, they're, they probably have more money than I do. I mean, I'm not poor. I mean, I have plenty of money. I just have even more had I bought Bitcoin at that time. I don't know how much different my life would be. Probably not much different. I mean, I have, plenty of things. I mean, they're all these guys are living in the same neighborhood as me, right? They're not living in a nicer neighborhood. Yeah, I think they have their own jet. I just have a fraction of a jet. I don't know. But I still get to travel private. Yeah. I mean, so I mean, yeah, I just bought a boat. Maybe I would have bought a bigger boat if I had if I had a few extra $1 billion lying around.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't have the kind of money that CZ has. But I mean, so yeah, I mean, of course, if I could go back in time and buy Bitcoin I'd have put everything into it if but so would everybody else, right? Everybody else would. There are a lot of people that got into Bitcoin that dismissed it when they first heard about it, and now they're in on it, and I think a lot of that, a lot of the people who have converted over had a vested interest. I think a lot of people on Wall Street who were very critical of it early on, once they saw how many people got into it, and they saw a market that they could tap into to generate fees and commissions, then they embraced it. Not because they believed in it, because they wanted to make money off of it. Because there was a big group of customers that would pay, fees for them to custody Bitcoin. And so that's why, the BlackRocks and the Fidelities are in it. They want to book the bets. They see all these gamblers and they want a piece of the action. And that's the same thing with politicians. A lot of the politicians, like Trump himself, was very anti-Bitcoin during his first term.
I agree.
But he became pro-Bitcoin when it was politically advantageous to do so. Not only were there a lot of people who owned Bitcoin and who would vote for him simply because he said, I'm going to be pro-Bitcoin. I'm going to help push up the value of your Bitcoin. And that was like, great, you got my vote, right? I mean, I want to get rich. It's like welfare for the Bitcoin people, right? Who were very anti-government. Now they're depending on government. I mean, the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve is really a Bitcoin bailout fund, right? Trying to get a government bailout to buy Bitcoin to push it up. But because Bitcoin got so high, the people like the ones I was chatting with last night who got in when I didn't get in and who now have hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, right? They're able to give that money to politicians. Politicians always need money because they have to get reelected. They need to campaign. And so a lot of politicians that were negative Bitcoin are positive on it, not because it's fundamentally any different, but because they're being paid to be positive. That's the lobby. Bitcoin, crypto, is now a bigger lobby than defense, than tobacco, than healthcare, insurance. I mean, all the big donors that wanted special favors from government, it's now the crypto industry that wants the most, and they have the most to pay. And I also think that government officials are getting in on the action too, like the Trump family. They're all invested in it. And there are other people politicians that get into these tokens, they want the price to go up because they bought it too. And so they're now trying to do things to pump up the price. So it's not that they really believe in it, but it just serves their interests. And so I think there's been a lot of corruption in government that has been fueled by the Bitcoin money, which again is ironic based on where it all came from and why it started. I mean, I think that anybody who was in Bitcoin early on for the original reasons should be out of it now. I mean, should be looking for something else, because Bitcoin today, is not what it was. And the reason there's all this regulation too, because the government's coming up with all these bills. You have the Genius Act, but you have different things. Most industries are not trying to get the government to regulate them more. They want government to leave them alone, right? Because it costs a lot of money to comply with regulations. But the crypto community wants regulation because they're looking for the regulation to legitimize what they're doing. They want to be able to say, look, you see, the government approves of this. The government is passing all these laws because crypto is here to stay. And it's a validation to get people to buy it, because now the government is coming up with these new rules of the game, which again, if you're a free market guy who bought into Bitcoin for that reason, you would not want more government regulation of Bitcoin. You want government to stay away from Bitcoin. That was part of the appeal initially, that it was away from it.
I agree.
That, you can transfer Bitcoin without all the KYC and all the AML that you would encounter if you use traditional finance. But now, all that applies to Bitcoin too.
Okay. You also spoke about CZ. Okay. Recently, you had a debate with CZ, and in that debate, CZ showed you the gold bar.
Yeah.
And he asked you, is it real or fake? And you said, I don't know.
Well, I can't look. It felt real, but once he put me on the spot like that, I mean, maybe it's not real. I mean, why is he asking me? So I don't have a kit where I can assay it and know is it 100% solid gold? Is it something else inside? It was very heavy, so gold is heavy, so it felt like it could be real gold, but I mean, I didn't want him to say, well, it's fake, and then say it's real. So it's it's hard to know, why is it's not like I recognized the fabricator, the mint, whoever made the bar, because it's like a unique thing that somebody made for him. But I mean, I thought it was probably real gold, but I didn't. I guess you can never know for sure. That's why people buy gold coins and bars that are made by reputable mints, so that you recognize the product, and you don't necessarily have to go and assay it. But it's not difficult if you have the right tool to quickly analyze a gold and see if it's pure gold or if it's something else, right? It's not difficult to do. But yeah, I mean, if you just look at a big chunk of gold, a big kilo bar gold, and yeah, I mean, it could be all gold or it might not be, right? You could put, but that doesn't mean that gold doesn't work as money, because gold has worked as money for thousands of years when people were less sophisticated than we are now. I mean, it was harder for people to tell if gold was real 1,000 years ago, because they didn't have a lot of the stuff we have now, but it still worked.
Yeah.
Right? But does that mean that there can't be something that's counterfeit? Yeah, I mean, the reason that gold coins are always ridged, if you look at it like a coin, and the reason that they put the ridges was so that if somebody scraped off some of the gold, you could tell, because the ridges would be chafed, right?
Yep.
And so if the ridges weren't intact, you wouldn't take the coin, because you say, it doesn't have the right amount of gold in it, because you've shaved. Because you could take a little bit of gold off of each coin and then make another one, right? If you get enough off, just a little bit off of one, right? And that you would be cheating. You'd be debasing the coin that you gave to somebody else, because they wouldn't be getting the weight of gold that was stamped on the coin. Right? So if you make it correctly, and we were talking about tokenized gold, where you wouldn't even have that problem, because if you got a token from a reputable issuer of that token, and you could verify that token on the same blockchain type that you verified Bitcoin, you wouldn't have the problem of having to assay it, right? You would just, if you got the token, then you had it.
Okay. So debate with CZ, he touched really great points. Like, for example, that stuck to me. For example, Bitcoin is easily verifiable and transferable in comparison of gold. You also talk about Bitcoin is virtual, as well as X and many Facebook is virtual, and that carry kind of value. Bitcoin is fixed supply. You can send in you can send it to Africa, India instantly. So there is many real life definition of value. There is real life value that
right.
is provided.
Well, but when you're talking about a website, right? Google or Facebook or Instagram, they have value because of what I use it for, what people use it for, to communicate information, for entertainment. They're useful things that I guess improve people's lives. But people that own Bitcoin are not using their Bitcoin all day long like they might be using X or Instagram, and when I use Instagram, I don't have to pay any money. I just use Instagram, right? I don't, so there's a lot of value to the consumer because the consumer doesn't even have to pay for it, right? It's just a free service. Maybe you have to see some ads or something like that. And the way Facebook is valuable or Instagram is the ability to generate ad revenue and help advertisers to find customers, right? It's a business, and it's a valuable business because it's able to, generate income. But Bitcoin doesn't do that. There's no. I mean, Bitcoin isn't a source of advertising revenue for the people who own Bitcoin. Just because Bitcoin is also intangible doesn't mean, well, it has value. Simply, it has to be intangible, but do something, right? I mean, music is intangible, but I can listen to it. Maybe it makes me feel good. I can dance to it. It can improve, a social setting, with music. But I mean, that Bitcoin doesn't do any of that. Bitcoin doesn't make me feel good. I can't dance to Bitcoin or sing along to Bitcoin. It's just there. It doesn't do those things.
But with Bitcoin, you can transfer billions of dollars without any intermediary, any part of the
Well,
world.
I can't transfer billions of dollars. I can transfer Bitcoin.
Yep.
Now, today, I could transfer enough Bitcoin so that it's worth billions of dollars if you sell it, right? As long as Bitcoin has a price, like this, and you can sell the Bitcoin, then yes, what I'm transferring to you is the ability to get dollars if you sell your Bitcoin. But I'm not transferring dollars. Now, if you want to transfer dollars, you can with a stable coin, right? Which, obviously, if that's what you want, right? If you want a crypto that you can easily transfer money quickly and cheaply around the world, then the stable coin is a much better way to do it than Bitcoin. And especially if the purpose is to purchase something, when people quote a price, it's never in Bitcoin. It's not like, yes, I'd like to buy this. What's the price? It's 0.0067 Bitcoin. No, the price is going to be in dollars or in euros. And so you might as well use a stable coin that is in those currencies so that the buyer and seller are assured that the price that's paid is the correct price. Because with Bitcoin, I mean, unless you're going to price it in Bitcoin, which nobody does, you have that volatility. If I try to send you the equivalent amount of Bitcoin, by the time you get it, is the Bitcoin higher? Is the Bitcoin lower? So stable coins just work a lot better for that. So if you're gonna say, hey, I love Bitcoin because I can do this with it. Well, you not only can you do that with other tokens, but you could do it with stable coins, which is a lot better for that particular purpose. So that's why most people say, we don't actually use Bitcoin for that. We just use it as a store of value because it's digital gold. And that's where I push back and say, but it's not digital gold. I mean, just because you say it's digital gold, I mean, it's nothing like gold, right? It's not a precious metal that you can do things with. It's just a string of numbers that you can't do anything with. So how is that any way similar to gold? It's not. And so if the only use case for Bitcoin is that it's digital gold, but it's not digital gold, then what's it for? What is it? It doesn't do anything. It's just a meme coin. That's the meme. The meme is that it's digital gold. The reality is it's nothing. But yes, there is a powerful network behind it. There are a lot of people that that support it. But there's no guarantee that that is going to continue. I mean, that's the case today. But it may not be the case tomorrow. And that's the leap of faith that you take when you're buying Bitcoin. And when people say, well, that's why you can't have tokenized gold because you have to trust a custodian. I think that's a much smaller leap of faith because there are trustworthy custodians in a free market. People build up a brand, they build up a reputation, they want to protect it, it has value. So I would rather trust that than just put my faith in Bitcoin and that people are going to continue to value it and continue to believe that it's something that it isn't. Right? Continue to believe that it's digital gold. And I think one of the reasons that that worked for a while was that gold wasn't going anywhere. Gold, after gold went from 300 to about 1900 in 2011, it pulled back to 1,000 in 2015. And then, it kind of traded around 1,500, 1,700, back down to 1,500, 1,800. Maybe it touched 2,000 in 2020 with COVID, that came back down to 1,600, 1,700, right? So really wasn't going anywhere. Meanwhile, Bitcoin was, on fire, just going way up, right? Yep. And so I think a lot of gold holders got frustrated watching everybody getting rich in Bitcoin while they were just, treading water. And I think a lot of frustrated gold investors went into Bitcoin. And part of the marketing was, hey, why are you sitting on that gold? It's doing nothing, and Bitcoin is just going up and up and up, and you're just holding on to your shiny rocks, and we're in the tech revolution. We have a car, and you're sitting there with a horse and a buggy, right? You need to step it up. Well, that worked for a while because gold wasn't doing anything. But now gold has doubled over the past couple of years. Gold year to date is up about 60%. Bitcoin is down on the year. So it's hard for the Bitcoin community to tell gold holders, you need to get out of your gold and buy Bitcoin. Well, why? My gold's doing so well and Bitcoin's going down. Why should I sell my gold? And what I think is going to happen is some of the people who were in gold and who got into Bitcoin are going to go back to gold. They're going to say, you know what? I should have stayed in my gold, right? I made a mistake buying Bitcoin because I've lost a lot, because if I had my gold, I'd have a lot more money now than Bitcoin. And so I think that that's going to be a big problem for Bitcoin when you get all that selling. Because I think a lot of the gold money went into the ETFs. Because I think a lot of it came out of gold ETFs, came out of gold stocks, and it went into Bitcoin ETFs. I don't think it was a lot of physical gold owners, because I think more physical gold owners understood that Bitcoin wasn't the same as gold. But if I had a gold ETF in my brokerage account and I could just sell it and buy a Bitcoin ETF, well, what's the difference, right? It's just a ticker, just a symbol in my account. So I think you had a lot of that. And that's why, even though the price of gold went way up in 2024 and 2025, there was net outflows. The public was selling gold the whole time it was going up. And they were buying Bitcoin. And they were making a mistake. Obviously, so far in hindsight, they made a mistake. They'd have been better off if they stayed in gold. But I think that's where a lot of the money came from that drove the last rally up above 100,000. A lot of it came from gold buyers, not physical gold buyers like Schiff Gold customers, but people that were buying the gold ETF or gold mining stocks.
You had a great debate with CZ. CZ also provided some great points in defense of Bitcoin. If you want to answer all the debate in just one single answer, what will be that?
I wish I'd have made the point that I just made with you about the verification when we talked, because the debate was supposed to be more about tokenized gold versus Bitcoin, not real gold. And so tokenized gold, would not have the issue of is it real or not. You just have to trust the custodian, right? But you wouldn't have to worry about the token because it would be the exact same thing as Bitcoin because it's on a blockchain, right? So it has all of those same benefits. It's just that it has the additional benefit of being actual gold, right? So if somebody says, hey, do you want to buy digital gold? Well, do you want to buy actual gold that's been digitized where you own the gold? Or do you want to own just a token that claims that it's gold, but it has nothing to do with gold and you have no ownership rights to get gold?
Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
so I should have mentioned that, but I mean, I didn't think of it at the time, but that's something I should have pointed out on the knowing whether or not it's real.
Okay, recently also Elon Musk has said the future of money is Bitcoin, as Bitcoin is derived from energy. What's your thought on that?
Well, look, you need to expend energy to create a Bitcoin. But that's about where it ends. So to say that Bitcoin is somehow about energy or that it's, some type of money that's based on energy or that, is disingenuous because Bitcoin isn't a battery. I mean, the energy that we expend, solving a mathematical equation to create a Bitcoin, that energy is not stored inside that Bitcoin to be released at some later time. So where it's digital energy. The energy is gone, to never be, used again. And so the fact that I needed that energy to solve that problem doesn't mean that Bitcoin is energy. I mean, I could dig a hole in the ground, a big hole, and I could use up a lot of energy to dig up the big hole. And then I can fill it back up again with the same dirt and use a lot of energy doing that. So the whole process of digging a hole and filling it back up again consumed a lot of energy. But, the earth that's there now, I mean, because now it looks exactly the way it looked before I started because I filled the hole back up. So, but the energy is gone. You can't say that, well, this piece of land represents energy because Peter used a lot of energy to dig a hole and fill it back up again. A lot of energy is used to create Bitcoin, but then you have nothing to show for it other than the Bitcoin. That's different from the energy that it takes to mine gold. Because if I use energy, and you do use a lot of energy to buy gold, to mine gold, now you've transformed the energy into a metal. So now I have this useful precious metal that can do all kinds of things that people needed. And so I've turned energy into gold, something else that's valuable. But when you turn energy into Bitcoin, you take something valuable and turn it into nothing. Now, it has a price because somebody's willing to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But they're only willing to buy it because they think somebody else will pay more when they go to sell it, right? But there's no underlying value. There's no underlying user. I mean, yes, people can buy gold because they think the price will go up. But there are a lot of people who buy gold because they need to buy it. And if the price goes down, they'll buy more because they'll get a better deal, right? They'll be, the cheaper the price of gold goes, the more uses there are for it. Because as the price of gold goes up, some people who might have used gold may use something else that's not as good. But for the money, it may make sense. So as gold gets more expensive, we have to cut back on how we use it. But, there are some instances where gold doesn't have a substitute. And so you just have to pay the higher price, whatever that price is.
So this is for the people who are going to watch. It's kind of call to action for them, okay? So you predicted the 2008 crisis perfectly. And for the couple of years, you are mentioning there is an even bigger crashes coming. Biggest in the history, okay? What exactly is this crash, when it can happen? And for the normal people who are watching it right now, what they can do?
Right. Well, I don't know that I got it perfectly, but I got a lot of it right. And, I knew that the housing bubble was being fueled by artificial low interest rates, government guaranteed mortgages, and securitization and wild speculation fueled by the cheap money. And so I knew how it was going to end. I knew that real estate was going to blow up, that there were going to be huge losses from the lenders, the banks, Fannie and Freddie, and all that. And I knew we would have a big recession when that crisis hit. And I also knew what the government was going to do in the aftermath, right? Quantitative easing, slashing interest rates. I mean, I predicted all that stuff. But I also predicted that as a consequence of what the government would do in response to the financial crisis, that we would have an even bigger crisis. That crisis was going to be a dollar crisis and a sovereign debt crisis. That's the crisis that we haven't had. And a lot of people, took me to task for that. Peter Schiff was wrong. You see, he's been calling for hyperinflation or a dollar crash, and it hasn't happened. And yes, it hasn't happened. But I think it will happen. And I think that the fact that we were able to delay it for as long as we did, it was only because we pursued policies that made all the problems worse that will ultimately lead to that crisis. And I think that gold moving up the way it has is an indicator that the crisis is closer now. How far away it is, I mean, I'm already, surprised that we've managed to delay it for as long as we have. So obviously we could continue for some time, but I don't know how much. But the fact that gold is already breaking out, the bond market hasn't collapsed, but it hasn't rallied the way people expected. The Fed is cutting rates, but the long end has been stuck at around 4%. They haven't been able to bring it down. Mortgage rates haven't come down the way they want. So the Fed has kind of lost control of the longer end of the curve as people are losing confidence in the fiscal policy of the United States, our ability to repay our debts without inflating the currency. Foreign central banks are de-dollarizing. They are moving out of dollars. They're moving into gold. This trend is going to accelerate. I think investors now, and if you look at what happened to like Morgan Stanley, they said, hey, the 60-40 portfolio should be 60-20-20. Sell half your bonds and buy gold. So I think demand for U.S. Treasuries is waning, not just by foreign central banks, but by American investors. So our deficits are exploding. We have to sell more bonds than ever, but we don't have buyers. I mean, they're trying to hope to get buyers out of stablecoins. They're saying maybe we can resurrect a new source of demand for Treasuries, in stablecoins. But I don't think these coins are going to be popular enough that it's going to open up a whole new borrowing opportunity for the U.S. government. I mean, I think a lot of the treasuries that are bought by stablecoin issuers are treasuries that won't be bought by money market funds or banks. It'll just be more of a shifting of the demand. I mean, there could be some incremental growth, but not nearly enough to offset the massive increase in supply, and the fact that central banks don't want to buy it anymore, and the fact that investors are not really looking at long-term treasuries because the yields are not high enough to even offset them for inflation, let alone what foreigners would see on a dollar depreciation. So, but the crisis I have been talking about is a dollar crisis. And ironically, that's what a lot of Bitcoiners are looking for too. That's why they're in Bitcoin. They think the dollar is going to collapse, and so they want to own Bitcoin. So I think they're right to be worried about the dollar collapsing. I just think they're wrong to think that Bitcoin is this salvation. They should be in gold instead. Is it possible that there could be a rush into Bitcoin in a dollar crisis? It's possible, but it's also possible that there's a Bitcoin crisis before there's a dollar crisis. I think it is inevitable that there'll be a rush into gold. So I think that if you think there's going to be a dollar crisis and the dollar's going to collapse, and if it does happen, I think you're pretty much assured that if you're in gold, you will, benefit from that or profit from that. If you're in Bitcoin, could go either way, right? At a minimum, right? It's not like a sure thing. And it's very far from a sure thing. So if you're looking for a hedge and a safe haven and a store of value, don't look at Bitcoin. You should look at gold. Now, if you want to gamble and speculate on what might happen with Bitcoin, then you could do that. But you recognize what you're doing, right? You're not putting money safely aside in case there's a currency crisis, a dollar crisis, because there could be a bigger Bitcoin crisis.
So finally, price predictions. Okay. especially for 2026, how do you think the market is going to look like for gold, stocks, and crypto, Bitcoin?
Well, it all would be a guess.
Yeah.
Look, I think gold's momentum is going to continue, and silver in 2026. So I expect prices to be higher. Obviously, it's possible that they go down, but I think it's far more likely that gold and silver continue to rise in 2026. I think the U.S. economy is going to weaken. It's an election year. I expect a lot more stimulus. I expect the Fed to be doing quantitative easing. And so all these things are going to be bullish for precious metals. And I also expect a lower dollar. The dollar was very weak in the first half of 2025, kind of stabilized in the second half. I think it will, have another leg down next year. So I think gold and silver are positive. Stock market, I think, it could go either way. I think there's a good chance that QE and cheap money will continue to, support stock prices. I think that we can continue to see a pullback in the AI trade and not just crypto stocks, but a lot of tech stocks. I think we could see more money shifting into value stocks, which would help favor the Dow, let's say, over the Nasdaq. More industrial and companies. But I do think you'll see more international investment. I think more global investors will be keeping their money. I think the emerging markets have been pretty quiet year to date, and I expect them to have a much bigger year next year. So I think emerging market stocks will do well. As far as Bitcoin, again, anything can happen, but I think Bitcoin is more likely to continue to decline in 2026, especially if the high is in. I mean, if the high is in, if Bitcoin can't make a new high, it's going down. In the short run, I feel pretty confident that we're going down at least to around 75,000 on Bitcoin, which is Michael Saylor's cost basis. So I think that's going to be kind of like a minimal for it to go. But I think the real key is going to be around that 50,000 level. If it can hold above that, then maybe it'll have another run. But if it can't, Bitcoin could collapse.
Really? Like, do you think though Bitcoin can go to zero in lifetime?
Well, I think eventually it will be at zero.
Really?
Eventually. But I think at this point, there are so many people around the world that are into Bitcoin. I just can't see there being no demand for it, right, at this point. At one point, I would have thought it could have gone to zero easier. But let's say Bitcoin went to 100 or even 1,000, right? That's still a lot of value for basically nothing. And, because I think there always will be some kind of interest in trading it. People will, there are companies that are bankrupt and the stocks still trade. People buy them, they trade them, maybe some people happen, So I think there will be a market for Bitcoin. I don't expect it to go to zero. 100 years from now, sure. No one will even remember it, and it'll be zero. But in the near term, in the next 5 or 10 years, it probably won't go to zero. But let's say it goes to 1,000. Let's give it 1,000. For all practical purpose, as far as you're concerned, based on what you paid, it might as well be zero, right? I mean, if you invest $1 million in Bitcoin and it's worth $100, I mean, does it really matter if it goes to zero? It's only $100 difference, right? So there's a tremendous potential for Bitcoin to fall.
And when it comes to, like you spoke about, you see gold and silver can do well in 2026. Any price targets that you have in your mind?
Well, I've been talking about $100 for silver, and it's getting close to 60 now. So I mean, so I think it could hit $100 next year. I mean, it may not. It may only go to $80. I don't know, but I think it's going higher. But if it doesn't go higher, I think it'll go higher in 2027, right? I mean, the trend is up. But I would expect an up year next year. Because I think the breakout above 650 was very significant for silver. And gold, I think gold will hit 5,000. I mean, I think it has a good shot of going above 6,000 next year. You know, and you know, it could go higher. Like, it depends on what happens with the dollar. But this is a serious bull market in precious metals that is being driven by fundamentals. You know, we have a serious fiscal problem in the United States that's only going to get worse. And the only politically viable way to deal with it is to create more inflation, to artificially suppress interest rates, to print money, and that's just going to drive more money into gold and silver. I mean, there's just no way around it. And I think that for years, some of the money that might have went into gold and silver did go into crypto, but I think now it's going to go into gold and silver because investors are getting the performance. They're not frustrated. You know, they don't need an alternative to gold. The real thing is doing just fine.
Okay. So let's play a very short rapid fire. Okay. You have to answer what I'm going to say the word, and you have to answer in one word. Gold in one word.
Good.
Good. Bitcoin in one word.
Bad.
US dollar in one word.
Oh, bad.
India in one word.
Interesting.
AI bubble or revolution?
Both.
Both. Okay. I'm a huge Bitcoin believer, but today I got to see your perspective, Peter. And according to me, any intelligent person should see the both side of the coins. They should hear critic also. They should hear the positive side and make their own decision. I hope that this overall podcast was very helpful for you. What will be the end message that you want to give to the viewers?
Well, I don't know. Hopefully, if you're in Bitcoin, you'll sell some of your Bitcoin. I mean, you don't have to sell all of it, right? But just don't be all in. A lot of people feel they're so convinced they're right. They want to have maximum exposure to Bitcoin because they don't want to leave anything on the table. And that kind of greed is dangerous. Look, there are a lot of other opportunities out there. You can make money in other assets. And even if they don't do as well as Bitcoin, it's okay because you'll have some Bitcoin and, don't be greedy. You'll make plenty of money. I mean, if you're right and Bitcoin's going to 1 million or 10 million, even if you sell half, you'll still make a lot of money. But if I'm right and it collapses, you don't want to be broke, and you don't want to miss out on a lot of other opportunities because you're keeping everything in Bitcoin. So because you don't only lose what you have in Bitcoin, but you lose what you could have had you invested in something that actually did well, right? So you have a lot more to lose, right? Let's say somebody has $100,000 in Bitcoin, and it goes to 10,000. Oh, I lost $90,000. Well, not really, because what if you invested that 100,000 someplace else and it would be 1 million? So you didn't lose 90,000. You lost 990,000 because you didn't have the 1 million because you had all this money in Bitcoin. So at a minimum, take some chips off the table and do something else. Whether it's having some gold or silver, invest in stocks or real estate or whatever you want to do, but just don't leave it all in Bitcoin. And and people can buy gold from me. They can go to Schiff Gold, or they can go to the company, or where I'm doing the digital gold and where I'm going to do the tokenized gold is tgold.com. So people around the world can go to tgold.com and set up an account and own gold and silver in that account. My mutual funds right now are only available in the U.S. People want to buy funds, but we're going to be launching an ETF share class, and hopefully they'll be listed around the world, and it'll be easier for people to buy. Well, the Euro Pacific funds. And people can get information on my mutual funds by going to europac.com. Europac.com is the website. And also people should, listen to my podcasts and go to, Schiff Radio or my YouTube channel. And, I talk about other things, not just crypto. And I look forward to the day where I don't have to talk about Bitcoin anymore because nobody cares about it because it's crashed and we can move on to better conversations.
Please go to Peter Schiff YouTube channel. I got to learn a lot. Thank you so much, Peter.
All right, my pleasure. All right.